going on? This is the Bottom Line Podcast presented by Anchor.fm, your home for sports and entertainment talk. I'm Jimmy Finizzi alongside Neil Villapiano. We hope you're doing well. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to take a listen. We truly appreciate it. You know what it is. Hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at BottomLineWMCX and on Twitter at The NVP Show and Instagram at NVPQB11 hashtag Bottom Line. And as always, if you like what you're seeing on YouTube, please drop a like and a comment down below. It helps out tremendously. And please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss an episode, and subscribe on all audio listening platforms. Just include Jimmy when searching for this podcast. First things first, if you're not watching on YouTube, I apologize if my camera angle is a little bit different than normal. I'm actually coming to you from an undisclosed location in New Jersey while Neil is back.
Car.
Yes, in my car.
The answer is his car. He's not.
Yes,
he's trying to make it sound like it's bigger than it is.
It is my car, but I am in an undisclosed location, so my apologies if my camera angle is a little bit different than normal. But Neil and I both are still in Jersey. Neil, how's everything with you, man?
Everything is peachy keen. It's been a nice couple of days weather-wise here. Been able to get out and actually enjoy the weather. Been to the beach a couple times with some people, which is good. Going to try to definitely do that more often as the summer rolls along. And other than that, just continuing to do work on things that I need to do work on, and just taking things one day at a time. How's things by you?
I 100% feel that. Everything is just fine on my end. Been taking a lot of walks outside lately. It has been just a gorgeous week. So I am really looking forward to seeing what the weekend has to offer. So it's been gorgeous. I hope this keeps up for at least a little while, although we might need some rain once in a while. But you know what? As long as this weather sticks around, I'm enjoying it very much. And I'm sure if you're a Knicks or a Nets fan, you're probably enjoying things right now as both teams are in the NBA playoffs, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about today. We'll be previewing both teams' series and who we think will win each series. And Neil, I hope you don't mind, but I want to start with your Brooklyn Nets first. Well, actually, first of all, let's look at where both teams finished in the standings. So, regular season standings. The Knicks finished 41-31 as the fourth seed in the Eastern Conference, and the Nets finished 48-24, just one game back behind the Philadelphia 76ers for the second seed in the Eastern Conference. And the Nets will be facing the Boston Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. This is going to be a very interesting series, even though me personally, I feel like it's a teeny bit one-sided because let's face it, the Celtics have been struggling lately. They've been struggling, and everybody's pretty much saying if the Celtics don't get anything done, Brad Stevens may be fired. Look, I don't think that's fair yet. Do I think it's fair for him to be on the hot seat at least? Yes, but I don't think it would be fair for him to be fired right this second. Let's see what happens in this series, then we can have a discussion. But do I think it's fair for him to be on the hot seat if they don't do anything in the playoffs? I think so. Yes, we can have a discussion there. But the reason why I say it's a bit one-sided here is, A, like I said, the Boston Celtics have been struggling. B, they have a plethora of injuries, including Jaylen Brown, which has been a big blow for them all season long. And let's face it, Jason Tatum cannot do everything by his damn self. I mean, he pretty much has been carrying this team on his back the past couple of games. And with the Nets, I mean, you got the big three. You got Harden, you got Durant, you got Kyrie. Who knows if they're going to stay healthy all postseason long? That remains to be seen. But as long as those three remain healthy, this Brooklyn Nets team is going to be tough to stop offensively in these playoffs. And because of that, Neil, I got the Brooklyn Nets winning this series in 5 games. I just think it's too one-sided. I think the Nets have too much offensive firepower, even with just 2 out of the 3 players. Even if it's just the combination of either Harden or Durant, Harden or Kyrie, KD and Kyrie, KD and Harden, however you want to put it. Even if it's just 2 out of those 3 guys and not just all 3, I still think it's going to be a big problem for the Celtics defensively. And like I said, they've been struggling for the most part the last half of the regular season. So give me the Brooklyn Nets in 5 games.
Bruce Brown, Chris Chiosa, Nick Claxton, Spencer Dinwiddie, Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, Blake Griffin, James Harden, Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving, Mike James, Alize Johnson, Tyler Johnson, DeAndre Jordan, Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, Reggie Perry, Landry Shamet. To me, ladies and gentlemen, the Nets do not have a big 3. They have a big 15. And the reason that I say that is, yes, will it sound biased because I'm a Nets fan 100%, but I've also watched this team from start to finish. This
Right.
team finished the year on a high note. This team finished with depth. Yes. Did the Nets not have their big three for the majority of the season? Understandable. They played 8 games this entire year together. The good news is that they've had a week now to prepare for this series against, it was going to be either Boston or it was going to be the Washington Wizards. And so they end up getting the Boston Celtics. Now, the Nets need to exercise some demons in the postseason. They need to beat some of the teams that they have had trouble with in the years past. The Nets and Celtics have a very close connection because if everybody remembers, about 6-7 years ago, the Nets made the infamous trade of acquiring Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry for several first-round picks that actually ended up becoming the likes of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Mm-hmm. And for Kyrie Irving, it's obviously his first opportunity in the postseason against his former team, the Boston Celtics. And you look at Kevin Durant, this is, his first time back in the playoffs since, he was with the Golden State Warriors. And so he's going to be energized. And James Harden. Harden's main goal, 100%, is to win an NBA championship. That's what it is. That's the only thing from I guess you could say, somewhat individual level, but also from a team level that James Harden has not won yet in his career. I think the Nets will play down to their competition because they've done that before. I want to say that the Celtics will probably win a game or two. They're definitely not going to sweep. I would be shocked if it was a sweep. I would be okay with it because then the Nets could just, make light work and move on to round 2 because we know that if they do get to round 2, we know what's coming. Barring something crazy, we know we know what the Nets are going to get in round 2, and that's going to be difficult.
Yes.
But you look at this, look at this team and the way that Sean Marks has put it together, especially knowing how difficult it was to trade away some of our young talent in Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, even Rodion Kurucs to a lesser extent. We had Taurean Prince. We had a pretty different team at the beginning of the year, and we have an even much different team at the end of the season. And you look at some of the guys that Sean Marks has brought in. I mean, he brought in Blake Griffin after he was bought out, and he's been one of our most energized players. I love seeing him play. I absolutely love the role that he plays on this team. He brought in LaMarcus Aldridge. Unfortunately, he had to retire, but at the same time, it was still nice to have him for the little time that we did. And he brought in other guys. He brought in Mike James. Nobody really knew who Mike James was. He was the best player in Europe when it comes to how good he was. And he came over and got up to a slow start. But as he progressed with the team, he started to get going. Alize Johnson is the first player in Nets history to have 20 points and 20 rebounds in a game coming off the bench. His first game with the Nets, mind you, they got blown out, but he came off the bench. He got a triple-double. So that shows you the amount of depth that this team has. And we have shooters all around. The biggest issue that I have with this Nets team is not their defense. Because I think when push comes to shove, I think that they will play defense. The problem that I have is this.
Yes.
They are very much like the Golden State Warriors in this sense. If they are not making their shots, they will not win. They will lose games because you are going to get the best from every single team you face every single game. You are not going to get, if the Nets get on somebody and they're, the other team is having an off night, then the Nets are going to win. Because even if they're also having an off night, the Nets are just a better team. And unfortunately, it's not like in other sports where talent isn't the only thing that can win you a championship. In the NBA, especially what we've seen from these talented super teams, it's kind of what ends up happening after a while. That talent ends up taking over. I think that the chemistry is going to be fine. I think that when you look at Harden and Kevin Durant, I mean, they already have chemistry because they played together in years past. They know what they can do with each other. And then with Kyrie, he has chemistry with Kevin Durant, and he's building chemistry with James Harden. I think what you're going to see in the playoffs is that there will not be a minute where all 3 guys on the Nets, big 3, if you want to call it that, are going to be on the bench. I think at one point or another, you're going to have one of the 3 on the court with the rest of the guys, unless we're blowing out somebody or something, and it doesn't matter. But the Nets are much better than the Boston Celtics. And that's not being
100%.
biased. That's just being factual. I mean, the Nets, I think, beat the
Right.
Celtics every time they faced them this year. And you look at, Jaylen Brown got hurt, done for the year. Well, that pretty much put it away. I mean, do I think this series could have gone deeper if Jaylen Brown was playing? I think it maybe. But again, the thing is that the Nets talent is going to end up prevailing after a while. And for that reason, I have the Nets winning in 6 because I do think that do think that the Celtics are going to win some games. I do think the Nets are going to have some situations where they're not getting their shots and the Celtics are going to go down and knock everything down because that's happened very, very often with the Nets. And I think that's one thing why people are easy to criticize the Nets for their defense. Do they have moments where their defense is terrible? Yes. But there are plenty of times where they're playing really good defense and the other team just throws something up and it goes in. That's what happens a lot more often than people realize. So, look, the Nets they do have weaknesses. They're not impossible to beat. I don't care what anyone says that, if the Nets have all 3 of their guys healthy and everything, they're unstoppable. Any team can be beat. Any team can be beat at any given moment. So I'm not going to sit here and beat my chest and say that I think the Nets will definitely make the NBA Finals. I've never seen them in the NBA Finals, let alone the conference finals. So I'm not going to get all excited or anything. I'm not confident enough to say that it's going to be a cakewalk. Do I want to be wrong? Yeah, as long as we win the series, I don't really care how long it takes. If it takes 7 games, it takes 7 games. That's all I care, But if we move on, that's what I care about. And we know that the target is on our back. We're not the number 1 seed, but we have the biggest target on our back, being the team that we are and the talent that we have on this team. And I mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie before. There's still the possibility he could come back. I don't know how much he could contribute, but it's certainly going to be a hell of a story if he comes back and actually plays at some point in these playoffs if the Nets make a long run. But this team has a lot of depth. I know the center position is somewhat of a question mark, but I will say this. When Nicholas Claxton is in the game, the Nets have one of the best defenses in the NBA because they still have a shot-protecting rim protector. They still have a shot-blocking rim protector. So they can get it going. And Steve Nash, look, like I said, the Nets have had a week here to prepare, and now they're going to be ready to go Saturday night in their first game. They're going to have fans a lot more than they had during the regular season. It's going to be exciting. And it's going to be the beginning of what should be, hopefully can be, a very long journey to possibly winning an NBA championship. But I'm going to give the Nets to win this series in 6. And look, when it comes to the Celtics really quick and talking about, Stevens, I don't think it's justified for him to get fired if they don't win this series because you look at the adversity that they've had to face, and then you look at the fact that they got on a roll late this season and were able to get themselves into a playoff position. But I do also get that with this core that the Celtics have put together, they still haven't been able to go very far in the playoffs. So you kind of wonder when that's going to change. I question how much longer Danny Ainge has got. I mean, I still think Danny Ainge is one of the best executives in the NBA, but they haven't produced even getting to the finals yet. Last year, they lost in the conference finals to the Miami Heat. And this year, they had to play a playing game just to get in. If they had lost to the Wizards, they would have been playing last night against the Hornets to prevent themselves from losing and getting knocked out without even really making the playoffs. But Jason Tatum had to carry the team. Jason Tatum can win the Celtics a game or 2 on his own. I've seen him do it, and I think it could happen. But could he win a 7-game series against the Nets team that even if they're not fully healthy, if they only have 2 of the stars? I don't think so. So give me the Brooklyn Nets to win that first-round series against Boston in 6 games.
All right. So, no, that's fair. And again, like I said before, Jason Tatum, as good as he is, I don't think he can do everything by him damn self all the time. He definitely needs help. And look, he's pretty much carried the team on his back for the latter half of the regular season. So let's see what happens with the Celtics. But you are right. We both have the Nets winning, but I have them in 5. Neil has them in 6, which I think is a fair assessment. It wouldn't surprise me if it went 6 games, but I just think it's too one-sided. Give me the Nets in 5 games. Knicks fans, we're talking to you next. Your team is in, and they've got quite the matchup ahead. They are playing the Atlanta Hawks, the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, who, by the way, finished with the exact same record as the Knicks, 41-31. And why is that? Because they started off the year 14-20, and they had to fire their head coach, Lloyd Pierce. And then after that, they finished the year 27-11, which included a plus 4.5 net rating that ranked second to the top-seeded Philadelphia 76ers in the Eastern Conference since the start of March. Talk about an impressive turnaround. Whew. The Atlanta Hawks definitely turned their season around. But look, we all know how good Trae Young is. He's only 22 years young. He's still going to be an absolute stud for years to come. But here's the thing. When the Knicks have faced him, they've actually done a pretty good job of keeping him quiet. Not only did they win all 3 games against the Hawks during the regular season, but they held Trae Young to 36.2% shooting and just 3 of 14, that's 21.4%, from three-point range. So if there's anybody who can keep Trae Young quiet, it would happen to be the New York Knicks. And look, you got to give the new head coach of the Hawks a lot of credit. He's really done a good job of turning Young and the entire team around since they went 14-20. But to be 100% honest with you, with the job that Tom Thibodeau has done, who, by the way, is a finalist for Coach of the Year, and thank goodness he should be, along with Monty Williams, and who the heck is the coach of the Utah Jazz again? What the heck is his name? I forget his name, but somebody let me know. Who's the coach of the Utah Jazz? He's also up for Coach of the Year as well. You got to give him credit as well. But look, we can talk about who should win Coach of the Year in another episode. Personally, for me, I think it should be Thibs or Monty Williams, either of the two. But
Monty Williams, hands down.
Well, yeah.
There's no debate. No, there's no debate because
no debate for you.
I understand what the Knicks have done. But the Phoenix Suns are the number 1 seed, or at least in the number 2 seed, in the Western Conference. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody thought the Suns were going to be this good. And all they needed was a guy like Chris Paul to come in and help. And that's what he's done. He's doing the same thing he did last year with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's doing the same thing. He's basically just bringing this team along and taking them to another level. So, and Monty Williams, look, this man went 8-0 in the bubble last year, and they still didn't make the playoffs. That man did everything he possibly can to win, to get his team in the playoffs last year, and he didn't do it. Of course, they have to play the Los Angeles Lakers, who are the lower seed, because that's just how it is. But I think Tom Thibodeau has done a phenomenal job with the Knicks. Do not get me wrong. But I think Monty Williams, with what he's done, I think he deserves to be Coach of the Year more, because he did more with the Phoenix Suns than what Tom Thibodeau did with the Knicks this year.
No, I can't argue with that. You make fair points. And would it surprise me if he won Coach of the Year? Absolutely not. He absolutely deserves it. But the reason why I say it should be either or is because, in my opinion, Tom Thibodeau did more with less talent around him. Because if you really think about it, who on the Knicks is a bona fide superstar? Nobody.
Randle. Julius Randle.
Well, but besides him,
Julius
by the
Randle.
way, he's up for most improved player. No shocker there. I mean, Julius Randle really has turned this game around. I'm really impressed. I love Julius Randle, playing like a damn new MVP candidate. So props to Julius Randle there. But that's why I say it should be either or. That's just me. We can talk more in depth about that in a future episode, but I digress there. Bottom line is, between the Knicks and the Hawks, I like the Knicks in 6. I think it's going to go 6 games. I think, given the regular season success that the Knicks have had against the Hawks, again, they swept the season series, for crying out loud. Again, the postseason can be different. I totally understand that. But I think that Tibbs is going to have these guys ready to go. And we've seen the job he's done. He's a no-nonsense guy. He's a defensive-minded coach. They have one of the best defenses in the NBA, for crying out loud. So if they can do the same job on Trae Young as they did in the regular season, again in the postseason, the Hawks are going to have a lot of trouble. Give me the New York Knicks in 6 games against the Atlanta Hawks.
You know, there's and maybe it's just because I'm a Nets fan, but there's a part of me that wants to believe that the Hawks could actually win this series, and they very well could. They very well could, because at some point, somebody's going to be able to figure out the Knicks thing on defense. And look, you mentioned it. The Knicks have statistically the best defense in the NBA, and defense does
Right.
win championships. And they got this. Tom Thibodeau got this team to really believe in itself and to work hard and to, be physical. And it's worked out. It's really, really worked out. And I think that a lot of it has to do with element of surprise, but it also means that the Knicks have actually worked hard and gotten to the point where they need to be. Look, the Knicks are at the higher seed. They're going to have home court advantage. I mean, we know Madison Square Garden, I think it's going to have 90% of fans. So that place is going to be rocking.
Last I checked, I think they sold like 15,000 seats at Madison Square Garden, which is the most they've had all season so far, which is tremendous. Right. It's going to be really, really exciting.
I believe it. And look, I understand if Knicks fans want to beat their chest. I get it. It's understandable. You finally got back to the playoffs. You're not going very far. Just going to call it like it is. I think they'll at least win this series. Then they'll get bounced out. But that's just me. I don't think they're going to win this series. I think that they will lose in 7. I think they're going to lose in 7. And the reason that I say that, the reason I say that is simply this. And I could be totally wrong. And honestly, I think this series is going to have to go to distance regardless of who wins it. I do not think it's a cakewalk for the Knicks. I don't. I personally don't. Because this is a 4-5 matchup. So these are very evenly teams. Like you mentioned, they have the same identical record. So clearly, and look, we know that John Collins is not going to be fully ready to go once the playoffs start. So it's going to be the Trae Young show for a lot of it. But Trae Young is that dude. Trae Young is a guy who can ball out and really take over a game. And I think he will have to at some point. And I think it's going to be a back and forth series. I wouldn't be surprised if it went like Knicks, Hawks, Knicks, Hawks, Knicks, Hawks, just back. No, I'm serious. Just back and forth. It's going to be interesting.
No, you're right.
To me, what it's going to come down to is not defense. It's going to be when these games are close, because a lot of these games are going to be close. Who's going to take that last shot for both teams? Who's going to be the guy that's going to have to step up? I think that I have the Knicks losing in 7 for one reason only. I do not trust a lot of the other guys when it comes to shooting the basketball. I think if you get the ball in Julius Randle's hands, I think that he can make stuff happen. But there's a couple other guys, I don't know. They still have a very young team. So if they get knocked out, would I be like one of those people that like gives crap to the Knicks like, oh, it was a failed season? No, it's already a successful season because you made the playoffs.
Yeah, which nobody expected.
Over 500.
Yeah, which nobody expected because they were projected to win 22 games this year.
Right, and I think it's understandable to think that way because if you look at the team where it looked like at the beginning of the season, it didn't look like a team that was going to make massive movements to where they are right now.
Yeah, this wasn't expected, let alone having them host a playoff series. No one expected that either.
Right, and anything the Knicks do from this point on is gravy because they've already done a great job, and they're not even going to be in the lottery. So that's a W in itself. That's a W in itself. So as long as the Knicks, and I'm talking specifically about James Dolan, as long as James Dolan doesn't touch anything, he just lets Rose and Worldwide West and Tom Thibodeau to do their job, the Knicks are going to be fine. The Knicks will continue to get better. But the fact that I'm already hearing, they're going to be trying to go after a star. Look, you've tried this before and it didn't work. It may not be time yet, unless you get the right superstar. And I don't know who that is. But if you think that like getting DeMar DeRozan in the offseason is going to be your star, you are on drugs. He's a complimentary piece. He's not that. But going back to this series, it's going to be electric. Do not get me wrong. It's going to be back and forth. And what you're going to see is that here is how the Hawks are going to lose. If the Hawks lose the series, this is how they're going to lose. They're going to get tired out because the Knicks are going to grind every single game. They're going to be physical. They're going to do whatever they can to get to that point. And look, the Knicks know that this is going to be an uphill climb. And they know they have expectations now. I think a lot of people expect them to win this series. So if they don't, is it somewhat of a failure? It's a failure from the standpoint of a lot of people thought that they were going to win because on paper, they are technically at times a better team than the Atlanta Hawks, particularly down low. But I still have the Hawks winning this series in 7 games. I just think it's going to be back and forth. It's a toss-up. And so I'm going to go with the Hawks in 7.
All right, no, I mean that's bold. I like it, and it wouldn't surprise me in any stretch of the imagination. But I do agree with you, Neil. This series is going to be extremely, extremely tight, and it would not shock me at all if it went 7 games. Because look, both teams, like I said before, share the exact same record. They have the same identity, okay, and they're both going to try and look and shut you down. So beyond, especially with the job that Tibbs has done defensively. So that's what I'm keeping my eye out on with the Hawks. Of course, Trae Young, I'm keeping my eyes out on, but the supporting cast around him definitely needs to help him out. I think they will do just that. But bottom line is, I have the Knicks winning in 6. Neil has the Atlanta Hawks in 7, and we also have the Nets winning against the Boston Celtics. I have them winning in 5. He has them winning in 6. And on that note, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. Let us know who you have winning each series. And actually, I do have one response here from Instagram from my boy Luca, who actually went to my alma mater, Monmouth University, at LG Morello 21 on Instagram. He says Knicks in 5. I don't know about 5 games, man. I don't know. I mean, look, would it shock me at all?
Yes.
Quite a bit.
Yes.
Quite a bit. I don't expect this series to go 5. This series is not going 5 games. I'm sorry. If it does, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked because there is no way in hell that this Knicks team with very little talent, regardless of the job that Tom Thibodeau has done, there is no way on God's green earth that this series is going 5 games. I'm sorry, Luca. I love you, man, but I do agree with you that the Knicks will win the series, but 5 games? Come on, man. Let's pump the brakes a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, it's wishful thinking. I'm assuming he's a Knicks fan. So if he is, that makes sense. Look, I'm just going to call it like it is. Most Knicks fans, not all, there's some good ones, but most of them are pretty delusional with their thinking.
Yes, no,
they have been since
just like some other New York sports fans.
Right. And this is part of the reason why I think a lot of people do not want to see the Knicks do well, because it comes to this point. It's either everybody is super negative and complains about, the fact that they've been suffering since 73, which is a really stupid thing to say, because as a fan of a team who hasn't even won a championship in their history, I mean, it's kind of stupid, but that's all right.
Thank you.
The other thing is that you have an owner that clearly does not know what he's doing and clearly does not care, because he's proven it before. Now, has he done a good job with the Knicks this year? Yeah, he just stayed the hell out the way. Just stay the hell out the way. But let me warn Knicks fans, don't get too cocky, because if you do, as it's happened in years past, you're going to fall flat on your face and something's going to go wrong. And then you're going to go back to complaining about how you feel like you're entitled to something.
You're going to start from square one all over again. And that's not what you want right now.
Right. And this is also a message to some Knicks fans. Yeah, I know you like to say that that you don't associate yourself with Stephen A as a Knicks fan. No, he is a Knicks fan. Okay, he is a Knicks fan. He is part of your fan base. Deal with it. Okay, accept the fact that he makes really crazy outtakes about the Knicks.
Yes,
deal with the fact that every single time a first take since last month, all he wants to talk about is the Knicks. Don't pretend like, we don't consider him part of our fan base. No, you do. No, because he is. He is a Knicks fan. Deal with it.
Exactly.
Deal with it, okay? Like, this is the thing. And again, look, I understand. Knicks and Nets fans do not get along. A lot of people want to call Nets fans front runners. Well, were you calling us front runners when we weren't that good? No,
exactly.
You were calling us an irrelevant franchise. So if the Nets end up winning a championship before the Knicks win another championship, I don't want to hear anything from any Knicks fan ever again. They could win 3 championships in a row after that. But if you let the Brooklyn Nets, who have only been in Brooklyn, only been in New York for 6-7 years now, and they end up winning a championship before you do, that's just it is what it is.
Oh man, that's a fair argument you make. I've got no rebuttal against that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, they can keep beating their chest all they want. We'll see them in the conference finals if they get there. We'll see them in the second round if they get there. And look, I'm a Nets fan. I have my own worries. Look, I'm a Nets fan. I have my own
Exactly.
worries, okay? I'm worried about my own team,
Yep.
all right? I am not beating my chest and saying that the Nets are going to win the championship. I still don't think that they can do it. I'm still worried about it. I'm still worried that things are
Right.
going to fall apart because as a Nets fan, watching this team with these expectations, it never works out. So this, for
Exactly.
me, I'm not going to beat my chest until it's the last game of the NBA Finals and we're celebrating a championship. Then I'm going to beat my chest because I deserve to. But I'm not going to beat my chest
Exactly.
when the playoffs haven't even started yet and we got a long way to go. The Knicks fans should do the same
There you
thing.
go.
Just be grateful that your team made the playoffs, okay? Just be thankful that your team made the playoffs. I'm thankful that my team made the playoffs because at times this year it looked like this team had no business being in the playoffs. So just be grateful that enjoy it, okay? Enjoy it. Just don't be an asshole. Excuse my language, but just don't be an asshole about it.
No, you're right.
If you win the series, great. But
Just
if
don't
you
be a jerk
lose in the
about it.
second round and get swept, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So deal with it. Just deal with it. And I know nobody wants to see the Nets win a championship because all of a sudden we are the bad guys because we just took advantage of the system that's in place. So I don't want to hear this. And I know people don't like the Nets because they're originally from Jersey. But a lot of you Knicks fans, you are from New Jersey. That's the sad.
Thank you.
And yes, there are some people, I'm not going to name names, but there are some people that chose to all of a sudden decide to stop being a Nets fan, all because they moved across the Hudson River. They didn't go to Seattle. They moved across the river and they decided to become a fan of a team that's already in New York. What is the difference? So
there is none. There is none.
I am happy for the Knicks. I hope that they do well. I would love to see a Knicks-Nets playoff series. I think that would be great for New York City. I think that would be great for the sport of basketball. The amount of money that the NBA could make off of that would be phenomenal. Okay? But let's be realistic here. Okay? The Knicks can upset anybody that they put their mind to if they keep playing the way that they're playing. But if they're not making shots, because sometimes they don't, that's going to be their downfall. But we'll see. You got to win this series against Atlanta first. So go win that.
Yep. Nope. Yep. You're 100% right. I'm with you on everything you just said. I've got no rebuttal. But Knicks fans, let's pump the brakes. If you win this series, great. Just don't be a jerk about it. And if you get swept in the second round, just be thankful that your team made the playoffs to begin with when you weren't even expected to, let alone host a damn playoff series in Madison Square Garden. Okay? So just be thankful. This is why I am just a casual basketball fan as of right now. That might change in the future. We shall see. But for right now, Knicks fans, come on. Pump the brakes a little bit here. On that note, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. Let us know who you have winning each series for the Nets and Celtics and the Knicks and the Hawks. Let us know on Twitter and Instagram at BottomLineWMCX and on Twitter at The NVP Show and Instagram at NVPQB11. Use the hashtag Bottom Line. And as always, if you like what you see on YouTube, drop a like and a comment down below. It helps out tremendously. And please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss an episode. And subscribe on all audio listening platforms. Just include Jimmy when searching for this podcast. The NBA playoffs are here. Both New York teams represented. Neil and I have the Nets winning their series. Neil has the Hawks winning against the Knicks, and I have the Knicks beating the Hawks. Who do you have winning? For Neil Piano, I'm Jimmy Finizzi. This is the Bottom Line Podcast, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace and enjoy the NBA playoffs.